our studios in Tel Aviv. Coming up in today's show, a wave of terror attacks continue to hit Israel. A Hamas leader threatens Israel from South Africa, and Israeli startups raise a shocking amount of money in 2015. I'm Natasha Kirchak, here with the latest news in Israel. An 18-year-old Israeli was wounded in a stabbing attack in Beit Shemesh this morning. The yeshiva student was ambushed by two Palestinian terrorists wearing T-shirts with the Hamas logo. He sustained moderate wounds in his upper body.
They hear gunshots and everything, and she, very still shaken up. I'm shaken up, but thank God nothing happened. To one man that studies Torah all day long. I know him personally, unbelievable fella. It's very hard to hear that. I saw him. It's hard to see that he got hurt. And God willing, he'll be all right.
The two terrorists were pushed back by civilians after the stabbing, after they attempted to board a children's bus. This wasn't the only incident of terrorism today. A Palestinian terrorist attempted to stab an IDF soldier in Hebron, but he was chased off by Israeli troops. Today's violence follows a series of terrorist attacks on Wednesday. 5 Israeli soldiers were run over last night by a Palestinian driver in the West Bank. 2 of the soldiers were moderately injured, and the others were lightly wounded. The attack was the third of the day. Yesterday morning, an Israeli policeman was hit by a car in the West Bank, and in the evening, a 19-year-old female soldier was severely stabbed by a Palestinian in a West Bank settlement. Meanwhile, Hamas's political chief has incited more violence against Israel during a visit to South Africa. Khaled Mashal was welcomed by South Africa's President Jacob Zuma in Cape Town on Sunday. And last night, the Hamas leader spoke out to his South African supporters. He urged for continued attacks against Israel during a government-endorsed rally. Israel has expressed shock and outrage at South Africa for hosting the terror group. And South Africa's deputy ambassador has been summoned to further address the issue. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met this morning to discuss the recent violence in Israel. The two politicians spoke about spiraling tensions in the region during a press conference in Berlin.
There's no question that this wave of attacks is driven directly by incitement. Incitement from Hamas, incitement from the Islamist movement in Israel, and incitement, I'm sorry to say, from President Abbas, the Palestinian Authority. I think it's time for the international community to say clearly to President Abbas, stop spreading lies about Israel. Lies that Israel wants to change the status quo on the Temple Mount, lies that Israel wants to tear down the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and lies that Israel is executing Palestinians. All of that is false.
It is absolutely critical to end all incitement, to end all violence, and to find a road forward to build the possibility, which is not there today, for a larger process. So we have to go steps. But today, you and I, can really rekindle that process.
Meanwhile, the United States is supposedly planning to increase its annual military aid to Israel. The yearly boost could reach up to $1 billion. For now, Israeli defense officials are calling the alleged increase a rumor. The U.S. already gives a supposed $3.1 billion to Israel each year. Israel recently refused to hold talks on the American military aid framework because of the Iranian nuclear agreement. But now Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon is scheduled to visit the United States next week. In other news, Israeli police will begin wearing body cameras starting next month. The move will allow police and traffic officers to document their encounters with civilians. Police Commissioner Bensi Sao hopes the cameras will help the police improve its negative image with the public. The cameras will allow for documentation of the events that lead up to the violent altercations. Plus, they'll hold police and civilians more accountable for their behavior. UNESCO has approved a resolution that recognizes Rachel's tomb and the tomb of the patriarchs as Muslim holy sites. The resolution previously attempted to declare the Western Wall as a Muslim site, but it was just changed before the vote. 26 countries voted in favor of the resolution. But Israeli leaders are saying the vote undermines peace and denies a Jewish right to holy sites. The Israeli Vice Prime Minister Silvan Shalom called UNESCO anti-Israel.
We are not happy with that decision, but still UNESCO is a very, very hostile organization toward Israel, and it's not the first time they do it. I told you they can even decide that the earth is flat. You know, the earth is flat. That any kind of decision can be accepted there in UNESCO because they have automatic majority and they can take any kind of vote against Israel.
Great news for the startup nation. Israeli startups are on track to raise a record $4.4 billion in 2015. Israeli high-tech startups have already raised close to $3.2 billion this year. The flood of capital reaching the industry this year was underscored by two major fundraisings in the last several days. The business intelligence platform Pyramid Analytics completed a $30 million round of funding, and the cybersecurity company Elusive Networks took in $22 million. Israeli companies have an average big round size of $35 million. It looks like the startup nation has a new title. Israel is becoming a vegan culinary capital with lots of new businesses to show for it. Israel now boasts its first ever all vegan cooking school and ice cream shop. But vegan businesses are now becoming the norm. A wave of vegan restaurants have taken over Tel Aviv, and restaurant owners say they aren't just trying to meet the needs of the vegan community. Rather, they're trying to introduce the vegan lifestyle to meat eaters. The owner of the all-vegan cooking school, Mevashlim Chavaya, says it's important that people understand vegan cooking isn't just about health food. It's fantastic, good-tasting food that can stand on its own. Looks like Tel Aviv tourists have lots of tasty surprises in store. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast.
תחזית מזג האוויר משודרת בחסות
מבחר מאווררים לקיץ החם. חנות המאווררים סטאר. יש לנו פה סטאר.
Today we'll have a high of 100 degrees with a low tonight of -15. Tomorrow it will be equally hot and torturous, so remember to dress appropriately and drink lots of water.
תחזית מזג האוויר משודרת בחסות
All right, everybody, that's it for the headlines. Today's exchange rate is 3.87 Israeli shekels to the American dollar. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.